Hello everyone and welcome to our event. Today we have the spotlight on the basic income experiment and the Finnish maternity package, and our event is called Socially Innovative Finland. And our schedule for today, I'm going to say a few words. I'm going to show a short video about the Finnish basic income experiment. Then our Director of Government and Community Relations, Olli Kangas, is going to give a presentation. And after that, the Head of Legal Affairs Unit, Marjukka Turunen, is going to give a short presentation. And after that, I'm going to tell you about the Finnish maternity package. And while you are watching the stream online, you can send questions on Twitter by using hashtags #BasicIncome2017 and #MaternityPackage2017. And Professor Kangas, unfortunately, has to leave right after his presentation. So if you have any questions to Mr. Kangas, please ask them right after his presentation. Okay.
The rationale of the basic income experiment. In Finland, income security is guaranteed to everyone. While the present social security system is the result of decades of development work, its basis was laid down in a very different world from ours. For this reason, a new social security model will be tried in Finland. A unique basic income experiment was launched in Finland in 2017. The aim of the experiment is to determine whether the social security system can be simplified and provide a stronger incentive for finding employment. At present, finding a job does not necessarily increase the income of an unemployed person, because earnings lower their social benefits. 2,000 random participants were chosen for the basic income experiment from among unemployed persons between the ages of 25 and 58. Kela has notified the participants of their selection, and individual citizens are not eligible to apply for basic income outside of this experimental group. During the experiments, the participants receive a basic monthly income of 560 euros. For example, should the unemployment benefit of the participant be higher than the basic income, the participant can apply for the exceeding amount from Kela. The basic income is a tax-free benefit and will not be reduced by any other income the participant may have. So, if the participant finds a job during the experiment, he or she will get both the salary and the basic income. The experiment will run for 2 years, and the employment situation of the participants will be monitored throughout the experiment, which will examine the question, could basic income increase employment and simplify the social security system? Kela will be responsible for implementing the experiment. For more information on the basic income experiment, go to kela.fi/basicincome.
Okay, and Mr. Kangas, please.
Will you put my presentation on so that I don't need to sing and dance here for nothing? Thank you very much. Good morning to everybody. I'm going to say something about background, why our government launched this kind of experiment that have been prized and that have been criticized by rather many persons. Just to begin with, the government that we have just now is a center-to-right government, and in that case, in that way, it's a little bit strange government to launch this kind of basic income experiment and to speak about basic income, because only center party perhaps is the party who in the government who is in favor as a party. this basic income. The other parties are a little bit divided inside, so that they are not clearly against, but not either totally in favor of. And what the Sipilä government that took office in May 2015 said in its governmental program was that we will experiment with basic income because there are changes in the labor markets, and there are lots of different kind of incentive traps in our social security system. Those incentive traps are related to income, and those traps are related to different kind of bureaucratic hassles that the claimants getting benefits are meeting here in this country. And when it comes to changes in labor market, we have lots of discussions here and there, not least in the States, about the future of employment in digital and gig economy. And there are different kind of calculations how to measure the impact of computerization and digitalization. And there are calculations and evaluations done for the US and some other countries. Perhaps the US is the best example what digital economy would mean for basic income and would mean for changes in the labor market, and what those changes in the labor market would mean for our social security. And here is the probability of computerization here, and we have here different sectors of persons, and we see that in low-paid jobs the probability of computerization is pretty high, and then also in high employment groups, and especially those who are in sales and retail industries are meeting lots of threats for computerization and gig economy. And if you look what the automatization and independent work means for different groups and in different countries, and if you rely on those calculations and evaluations what the OECD and International Monetary Fund has done, we see that in all countries we have some threats for employment coming from automatization and digitalization. And according to OECD, we see that, for example, in some countries, say Slovak Republic and Czech Republic, the threat or probability of computerization and the disappearing of works is something like 45%. And when it comes to Finland, the Finnish case is not the worst one, but we are perhaps among the least threat countries, so that the probability of computerization and the disappearing of jobs because of gig economy is pretty low, or rather low, comparatively speaking, in Finland. But nevertheless, something like 35% of the jobs are going to change the nature to the digital economy. And this right-hand picture shows where those changes are going to take place, so that which groups are the most vulnerable and exposed to changes. And in all countries, it seems to be so that we have a dualization of labor market, so that there are changes in the low end or low-paid end of the labor market and high end of the labor market. And then growth of employment is the least in the middle, so that we see in all countries some kind of squeezing of the middle. And we have employment growth in the low-paid sectors and high-paid sectors. And the median is somehow evaporating and getting smaller in all countries. And that may cause some problems, so that if it's so that low-paid employment will increase, if it's so that we have more and more people in vulnerable positions, short-time contracts, low-paid jobs, zero-hour contracts, etc. In that case, basic income may be a solution for social security problems of those people. And then the question is that is this kind of situation happening in Finland? And we have lots of controversial arguments dealing with the Finnish situation. So that here the Finnish situation seems to be rather stable in that sense that not that much perhaps is happening here, not that much as in some other countries, for example in the States. That's perhaps the leading country in this respect. And if we then look at the Finnish situation, how much do we have people in precarious situations and short-term contracts and atypical labor contracts, we can see a very, very strong continuation if we look at people who are employed. So that here in the left-hand side, we see that something like 80% of persons who have employment, or employees, male employees have permanent jobs as they used to have decades ago. Not that much is happening there. And then if you look at temporary labor and part-time labor, nothing has happened here either. So that the picture is rather stable. And this picture is very often used to say that we don't need any basic income. We don't have any use of it because nothing has changed. And when it comes to the female labor force, we see pretty much the same trend. 70% of the female employees have permanent contracts. And a little bit we see here, if you look at female employment, increase in part-time employment, but part-time employment in this country has traditionally been pretty low. And it still is pretty low in comparison to many other countries like the Netherlands, and even if you compare Finland with the other Nordic countries, the levels are pretty low here. Okay, so no destruction of standard employment. Everything good in the state of Finland. Perhaps the picture is not that sunny, and there's a flip side. So that there is an increasing number of people in self-employment, so that during the last decades we have had increase in self-employment by 70,000 persons who are self-employed in Finland. And as we know in this country, those who have permanent jobs and who have employees, they have pretty good social security in comparative terms, if you compare Finland with other countries. But when it comes to self-employed, their situation is more precarious and more unsecure. And if we have increasing number of self-employed as we have, and if we have increasing number of small-scale self-employment, freelancers, and other persons, one-person enterprises, etc., in that case, the situation is perhaps not that good as the situation of ordinary employees. And also, we have to remember that outside paid labor, we have a huge number of unemployed persons. And if you take into consideration that group, in that case, this sunny picture is changing, to my mind, pretty dramatically. And if you take then this picture as a starting point, we can say that we have no use at all for basic income, because everybody is secured and has good permanent jobs and good salaries, good wages, and sun is shining. But here we may say that we may have some problems, and maybe basic income or something like that's mimicking basic income can be a solution. Then this was part one. What is happening in the labor markets, and a kind of motivation, how our government is thinking and motivating why we should experiment with basic income. And the second issue is that income trap. And in our primary and the first report, or preliminary report that we derived and gave or delivered it to the government in the end of March, we did lots of calculations how people benefit in the case that they take employment. And here we have one example of that, so that we have one unemployed person who is a single mother or father, usually mother, and she has two children who are in daycare. They are living in Helsinki area, and they are paying the usual rent what people are paying here. And here we have earned income from work, and here in this zero situation, people is totally unemployed and has nothing from employment, and everything is coming from Social Security. And as we see here, in total, that kind of person is getting 2,000 euros a month. And then in the case that her wage or income from employment will increase, her net income will increase to some extent, but then it's pretty flat. And the reason is that we have a couple of income-tested benefits that are paid on top of each other, and every single euro the person is earning after a certain threshold will diminish according to certain formula his and her income. And it leads to a situation that work doesn't not necessarily pay at least enough. And in some cases, effective marginal tax rate is something like 100%, so that the clawback effect is 100%. And this is called monetary disincentive. And it can be, in some cases, pretty strong. Not always, but at least in some cases. And the government wants to solve these kind of problems that we have in those income transfers, creating monetary traps. And the government will to make work pay, and the experiment tries to figure out if basic income is a device to do that. And in our preliminary report, once again, we did lots of calculations with different levels of basic income. And only in the case that we have a very high basic income, say 1,000 euros, 1,500 euros, in that case, we can replace all those, or at least most of those income-tested benefits and get rid of those problems that we have in incentive terms. But the problem is that, according to our calculations, we should have very, very high levels of taxes collected on benefit coming on top of basic income. And that, in the case that it's a flat rate tax and collected from income only, in that case, the tax levels would be 70% in the case of 1,000 euros and close to 80% in the case of 1,500 euros. So that those taxation levels are pretty high, and we couldn't go further by it. And when we are now experimenting with partial basic income, we must say honestly that it doesn't solve all those problems that we have, or incentive problems that we have in monetary terms. There are lots of them left there. And there are lots of criticism saying or criticizing our experiment that we don't solve all those income traps. We don't do that. We are not arguing that we do that. And there are lots of criticism criticizing the very basic income concept, that if it's a partial basic income, in that case, it doesn't solve all those problems that we have. It doesn't. And therefore, the example, we have here a person, him or her, NN, she's unemployed in the very beginning and then gets sick. Is sick, say, 3-4 months, and then recovers, and then she calls Kela and says that I'm fit to work, I will to work, and then she will contact the labor office or employment office that will give the labor market statement saying that the person is fit to work and suitable for work, and in some cases that the statement will take 6 weeks to be done. And during that 6 weeks, the claimant desperately goes to the Social Assistance Bureau that in the beginning of this year is Kela, and saying that I'm out of money, please help me, and then social assistance comes in the picture and helps her. But the moral in this story is that we have one single person who has her life sliced in different parts, and then all those parts are paid out by Kela. So that she gets money from Kela, she gets money from Kela, she gets money from Kela, she gets money from Kela. And the person goes different systems in this house. And then my question is, why not to, if we don't want to have basic income, why not to simplify the system so that put at least some of those benefits together to make life a little bit easier for the claimant who is here struggling with different kind of Kela bureaucrats. And then this would lead also that we could diminish us bureaucrats sitting here in Kela. I don't know how many persons, but if we can believe social media and discussions there, if we can get rid of 100 Kela bureaucrats, in that case, sun is shining, world is nicer, GDP is growing faster, and everything is much better when we are less people working here and punishing people here in Kela. That was actually my story for this morning, and we have got 2 questions from the internet, and before I leave word to Olga, I'll try to answer. One question is that how did we decide on the amount that was less than 600 euros? We did different kind of calculations, and we had different levels of basic income, 560, 650, 750, up to 1,500 euros. And we calculated who will benefit, what are the costs, etc., etc. And then this 560 is about the same level what the unemployed person getting basic unemployment compensation from Kela is just now getting in net terms, so that it's precisely the same level. And because we have a compulsory, obligatory experiment, we couldn't pay, or we couldn't compel people to participate in experiment where they are getting less what they are getting just now. So that was a baseline. And why not more? In this country, we have a constitution who is saying that all persons must be treated equally. And in an experiment like this, we are treating people unequally per definition. We have a treatment group that is getting something, in this case 560 euros, and we have a control group that's getting nothing. And then we had discussions and deliberations that if we have, say, 800 euros. In that case, our constitutional committee would say that it's too unequal treatment of the treatment group vis-a-vis the control group. And then we thought that, okay, perhaps the 560 euros is the baseline, but also the maximum. And the constitutional committee accepted this package. And the second question, shortly, how is this experiment different to what they have done in the Netherlands? Yes, perhaps I'm not the best person to speak about the Dutch case, but I think that what is exceptional in this Finnish experiment is that it's a nationwide randomized experiment, so that we are trying to mimic natural experiments in natural sciences and medical sciences, so that that is the main difference, so that it represents the whole country of unemployed persons in the whole country, and it's randomized. We have control group, and we have the experimental group that is exposed to the treatment effect, so that we hope that we can draw very strong causal conclusions from here. Whereas in the Netherlands, to my understanding, they have had only local experiments that are working on the municipal basis. And what they are doing just now in the Netherlands, the experiments are starting from the grassroots level, in that way that there are municipalities that are eager to start something, whereas the central government is not that eager. Whereas in Finland, it was central government that wanted to have this experiment. So that here we had top-down, in the Netherlands, bottom-up. So that's perhaps the main difference. So that I don't have any other questions in my list, but only those two.
Thank you for the presentation, Olli. Does anyone have any more questions here in the audience? Okay, there's a question for you.
Hello, Olli. This is David Cord from the Finnish Foreign Ministry's This is Finland website. And I interviewed you last week, and you mentioned how it would be interesting in the future if this could be expanded, like to freelancers, this experiment. But now what you just said about the Constitutional Committee, do you think they could throw a wrench in this being expanded in the future?
No, I don't think that the Constitutional Committee is a hindrance to expand this experiment to other groups of persons. And in our final report, we very much recommended that we could start a new experiment 2018 and perhaps a third one in the beginning of 2019, when we have a proper income register that would allow us to test, for example, with the negative income tax and other models, so that the Constitutional Committee perhaps is hindrance for those fancy models and experimental settings that we had in our preliminary report, where we wanted to test different levels, 560, 650, 750, 850, and 10 different taxation levels. And I think that in that case, Constitutional Committee would be perhaps more reluctant to let us go further. But hopefully, what I'm very happy is that they accepted this kind of experiment, because this is rather unique in this country. So that the world, or the window of possibilities is just now open, and I very, very strongly wish for that there will be successive experimenting with the broader group of people, freelancers, other small income earners, etc., not only with those getting basic unemployment benefits from Kela.
Thank you for the question. Any other questions in the audience? Okay, if not, then we are going to move forward. And I wanted to remind you that you can send questions and comments on Twitter by using the hashtag maternity package 2017 or hashtag basic income 2017. But now I'm going to invite Marjukka Turunen. And as I said, Marjukka is the head of Kela's Legal Affairs Unit. Welcome, Marjukka.
Thank you, Olga. Hello, everybody. My name is Marjukka Turunen, and as Olga said, I'm head of legal unit here in Kela, and our unit takes care of these legislational changes that concern all of our benefits. There is about 40 of them, and benefits parts. So, as Professor Kangas here told you, our social security system is very, very complex, and this is one reason why we are experimenting this basic income And as Professor Kangas, I'm also very happy that we are doing this, and this is a unique thing here in Finland. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this implementation of this experiment, and a little bit about practice. How does this basic income experiment works in practice? First of all, this basic income experiment, it takes about 2 years now. You all know that, and it consists of these 2,000 people who are spread widely all over Finland. So this experiment is nationwide, and that makes it. That's the one thing that makes it so unique. I first want to emphasize a few things that I think that are the main goals, or the main things that I think it's very important here in this experiment, and those are only the main goals. I think that there are lots of more of this information that we are going to have from this experiment, and lots of other interesting things. But of course, this experiment is one of those actions that our government has decided to do to aim to renewing social security, to answer better to the changes of our working life. So it has been changing all the time, and now it's very much different than it was a few decades ago. And our social security legislation has aged so much that we have to renew it anyways, whether these experiments would have taken place or not. So for example, our sickness benefit and parental benefit legislation is very old, and it needs to be renewed. And I think that we are going to get lots of information from this experiment for how to renew the legislation. Of course, we are trying to get information to develop this social security, to renew it to another level, as we say here now, and to have more incentive to take on a job, to incentives for persons to take on work, and of course this, what Professor Kangas was telling, reduce bureaucracy, and that's one of the main goals here, I think so too, and simplify the complexity of the social security system. Why is this Finland's experiment so unique? This is a question that many reporters have asked me, and I tried to figure out what was so unique. Of course, the researching side is very important, but this experiment is compulsory, and I think that I haven't studied that closely to other countries' experiments, but I think that this is one reason why it's so unique, because you don't get to choose if you're in this experiment or not. You don't get to apply for getting into this experiment. So it came as a suddenly for these picked to this experiment. So we get more trustworthy results and more genuine results from these experiments when it's compulsory. Well, then when it would be kind of like you could apply for it, and many of these experiments are discussed by the city boards and so on, and they are deciding whether they would want to go to this kind of basic income experiment in different around world. So this was compulsory, so it makes these results more genuine. Also, the target group was picked. These 2,000 people was picked from the whole group of basic unemployment benefit receivers. So we didn't get anybody out of this group. So it makes this also these results very, very trustworthy. And this target group, or this group who has been picked to this experiment, and the control group, they have the same profile. So we don't do anything to these two groups. So if somebody gets out of these experiments, so the experiment group gets smaller, but we don't get anybody in during this experiment. So they stay all the time during this experiment the same, and we can closely look how do they behave. So what does the target group do, and what does the control group do? Experiment is nationwide, as Olli here said, so it's quite unusual and unique, because all the other experiments have been local, and I think that Finland is a small country, and this is a good thing in here, because we could do it nationwide. Also, this experiment is implemented by the main social security implementer here in Finland. So Kela is doing this implementation, and it's unique. There are other institutions and other organizations that are implementing these experiments in other places in world. And this is important. This experiment has been planned and implemented by interdisciplinary group. So we have been having a wide range of different kind of experts from the research side, from the legislation side, from the benefit expert side, from ICT. So we did it widely inside Kela, taking a wide group of people here who have a different kind of expertise. And so I think that during this implementation, we have been getting good knowledge about, I understand the researcher side now better than I used to do, because we have been all the time working together and discussing about how do we do this. And our researchers were in this legislational preparation. So we just went through paragraphs together and figured out how we are going to say this, that who is eligible for this and who is entitled to this basic income. So we did it together, and I think that this is very innovative and good thing here what we have done. And I think that that's one reason that we could do it so quickly. So we started last May, and we prepared this legislation in 4 months, and that was really quick. And at the same time, we implemented did all the ICT work that we can pay these basic incomes to these experimentees, and so we did all in such a short time, and it was really a good innovative thing here. And this experiment is based on legislation, so we did a law considering this experiment, and that's pretty unique too. So I think that these other experiments around the world, they are based on contracts or whatever, but legislation is now in the base of this, and it makes it so more stronger, I think. And as Olli said, that this law has been also tested in our constitutional board or in parliament, so we have a sustainable thing here on the basis of this experiment. So I think these are the reasons why this is so unique. And now I will tell a few words about these main goals that I think that are those which are in these experiments and which will bring us good things. And one is this more incentives to take on work. So in some situations it might be so that nowadays when a person gets unemployment benefit and takes on a part-time job, including when we take consideration of taxes and everything and this increasement that they get to this basic part of unemployment benefit, it might be so that if you take on a part-time job, you get less money to your hand than what you would get when you would fully unemployed and just stayed on the full unemployment benefit. So there is this trap of incentive that we want to know if this basic income is tackling on. And so we have this rule that €1 of earnings reduces 50 cents of this unemployment benefit. So that's the calculation method that we have in there. The second thing is, I think, very, very important. And actually, when I have been thinking about this thing, I think that this is going to go, it's rising higher and higher all the time. That I think that this basic income, the good point and good idea in this is that it's always paid in advance. Every month, second bank day. It comes as a train every month, €560 at the same day. And when we send these decisions to these 2,000 people, they got all, at the same time, they got on this decision, they know all the dates that they are getting this €560. So in the beginning of the decision paper, there is all these dates that they are getting this basic income. And that gives these people peace of mind, this financial security feeling that you know that this money comes no matter what. So you can do whatever you do, you can plan ahead your financial thing, you know that money comes. Of course, it's €560. It's not that much, but it gives you the planning time to maybe motivate you to look for a job or plan something and not be insecure about how your incomes will be from Kela Because unemployment benefits nowadays, it's kind of like problematic in that way that it's always paid beforehand. So in 4 weeks' time, we expect that customers bring us the application that I have been unemployed in these days during these 4 weeks. And if you have taken on part-time jobs, you can have many employers, for example, when doing some job, or for example, cleaning jobs or whatever, low-paid jobs, and you can have many employers, and you have to wait that everybody of them are giving you the paycheck, because you have to bring the paycheck to Kela and along with the application to unemployment benefit, and then that takes time, and then you have to wait that Kela processes these applications and looks and calculates how much are you going to be entitled to having this unemployment benefit, and then Kela pays it. And that's the reason that this basic income is so good, that with unemployment benefit and part-time jobs, you don't know when you get the money and how much will you get. So you have this insecurity feeling all the time in your life that will I take on this part-time job? If I don't take it, I will get this full unemployment benefit more regularly than I would get this part of it, part of the unemployment benefit. So this is a very important question. Well, of course, when I look at the implementer side of view, this bureaucracy thing and this administrational burden is very important thing, because we have lots of those kind of administrational work that could be reduced in the future. It partly comes from the legislation and the complexity of our social security legislation, but partly because people's persons and customers' lives changes all the time. As Olli told this example about this person who gets sick and has unemployment benefit, and of course nowadays when we have from the beginning of the year we have this social assistance in implementing side here in Kela, it all comes to more transparent now. So we have lots of bureaucracy, as I told you before about this unemployment benefit. If you take on a part-time job, there is lots of bureaucracy for customer and for Kela also, and it takes a lot of energy for these people to meet the needs that Kela wants, and this status changes is the other big thing, that if a person in experiment gets sick or has a baby, that also covers this basic income, covers these situations. So he or she will stay in this basic income system and don't have to apply for the sickness benefit or parental benefit when not wanted. Of course, we have been guiding these customers that please come and bring your information to us or call us the information so we can calculate if you get more than this 560 euros, so we pay the rest in these other benefits. But this is the idea, to see if these status changes can be kind of like vanished from the system, and harmonize some of our social security benefits, and could we do that, and could we have the information from this experiment to do that? That I personally wait from this experiment. So we do a lot of work. We have lots of benefits and lots of bureaucracy here. The target group of 2,000 persons have been, as I said, widely spread in all around the country. And here you can see the percentual amount, where is everybody. So the southern insurance district is the biggest, and of course the unemployment persons who receive nowadays the unemployment benefit from Kela, the biggest group is in southern district, and so you can see the age range here in the right side, and other information. 48% female, 52% male. And this is kind of like the same thing that as the whole group of unemployment benefit receivers are. So it's a good example and good group which profile is the same that the big group's profile. Well, the experiment in practice, as many of you know, the decisions of this basic income were sent after Christmas to these 2,000 people, and we tried to explain very clearly what does this mean, this experiment for you, what do you have to do, and what does Kela want you to do, and when are we going to pay this basic income. As I said, every date during these 2 years is informed to these customers, and then we have this centralized service for these customers who are now in this experiment, and we have one phone number for Finnish people and Finnish-speaking people and Swedish-speaking people. We have another number, and we have been receiving 50 calls per day from these 2,000 people who have been picked to this experience, and the biggest question, or the biggest reason that they have called us is this really real? Can I really keep this 560 euros and take on a job? They are really happy. The other part is asking, how does this affect my other benefits? They don't know what to do, and what does this affect if I take on a part-time job? What happens to my housing allowance? And that's a really important thing, because this basic income is now a new part of our social security system for 2 years. And the other benefits act like they used to act. So you have to remember that customers who have had housing allowance, of course, it acts with these earnings as it acted before. So you may not get it anymore if you take on a job, of course. And Kela is not allowed to inform these people or their information. Of course, we don't give anybody any other customer information either. So we are not allowed by legislation to give the information, and of course the individual privacy has to be considered. And of course, we have been emphasizing that we don't want to bother these people now during this experiment. We are not going to ask them, how are you doing, and are you taking on a job, and how does it feel to be in this experiment? Because we could alter their behavior, for example, by making them take work or not take work or something like that. So we monitor in the background, as we saw in the YouTube video, that we monitor, and we have information in our registers and in tax offices registers and employment offices registers, and we are going to see in the background what are these people doing and how are they behaving. And at the end of this trial and this experiment, we are going to do this maybe this interviewing thing, that we are trying to figure out what have they been doing, and also a little bit wider perspective to their health and so on, and try to figure out these things that our parliament and our government wants us to get from this experiment. And how do customers act in practice? They don't actually have to do anything. They don't have to inform Kela if they are taking on a job. They don't have to apply for these unemployment benefits. We hope that they do, because it affects their future. For example, in 20 years from now, when some of them are going to apply for a pension, for example, invalidity pension or something like that, it might be so that if they have not applied for this unemployment benefit during this experiment, it might affect the amount of their invalidity benefit. But we are trying to get them to apply these, because it's really easy, and we can make it more easy for these persons in this experiment. And so other benefits act like they have before, as I told you before. So earnings might reduce housing allowance. They of course have to inform their earnings to other benefits, but they get to keep this basic income nevertheless what they do. And because this is tax-free, this basic income, they don't have to inform to tax offices. I have one example here. This is an actual case that came out in in social media, so I I can tell you about this. This is a guy who got earlier 522 euros per month, this basic unemployment allowance, and housing allowance 330 euros. And this housing allowance, its amount depends on where do you live here in Finland and how much are your earnings and other incomes, and how much persons do you have in the same house living in there, and so on. But this was a single person living in Joensuu in eastern Finland. And he was like criticizing that is it so that my incomes increase by this experiment only 38 euros per month now? Yes, this is not a lottery win if you don't do anything. The idea was to give you incentives to take on a job and have this 560 euros on top of your earnings. And so this is the idea. Yeah, you can stay on this experiment and just have 38 euros more per month. And some of these people are going to do that, I think. So, and let us know to do that. So they don't apply for a job for the whole 2 years and they just stay in this experiment. But I hope that many people will try to get jobs and get the incentive and be more active in this experiment. And this is kind of like the picture. How does the earnings affect to this basic income? So, as I said, other benefits will act as they used to act, and so earnings will affect them because they are income tested. Most of those benefits, but every euro that you get from your work, every earning you get, you can keep it, and you can keep the basic income. That's the idea here. And in the end, the customers' comments and feedback, as I told you, we have this centralized telephone service, and I was asking from there that what are these people telling and asking you about, and as I said, 50 phone calls per day. It's not much and so I'm happy because I think that the decision that we sent to those persons were quite clear in this matter, in this sense, and they have been, most of them have been positive surprises, as I said, and many have called to Kela and thinking about starting their own businesses now, and we have examples in social media and media too that they have announced themselves that I'm in this experiment and now I can start to try again and try to work again. And those who have started studies, they have a selection. They can select this basic income or student benefits, and most of them who have been calling us have been selected basic income instead of the student benefits. And single persons have also thinking about staying on this basic income, not applying for a job, but there are also those who don't just stay on their couches and drink vodka, but there are also those who are now taking care of elderly people, for example, who think that now they can stay on this basic income and take care of their parents and not have to wait for the employment office to offer their jobs, and they have to refuse because they cannot get out of their homes because they are taking care of the elderly people. Thank you very much. I will now answer questions if you have any. There. Wait a minute for the microphone.
You mentioned that you didn't exclude any specific groups, but I noticed that you only start at age 25.
Yes.
Why did you start there instead of younger?
There was talk about this kind of like younger persons, but we decided, and the Ministry of Health decided that we have to go up from 25, because younger than that we expect that they are studying or doing something else and then getting onto the working life through that. But I think that there has been talk about trying this basic income also with the students, because that's a big problem here. They want to work, but they lose their student benefits because of the earnings.
Well, that was something else I noticed. This is the first time I've noticed that they could choose if they wanted basic income or student benefits. And
Yes.
this just applied to students?
Just to students, yes. Yes, we took this few of these basic social security benefits, unemployment benefits, and then this sickness benefit and parental benefits. And those are the benefits that this basic income is supposed to cover. Or replace, as Olli said, replace. And then student benefits was a category that we were thinking about, that what happens when they apply for student benefits, is it good or bad? And there was kind of like this cooperation with other benefits that we came up with the solution that they can choose.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, Olli.
Yeah, thank you for a very interesting, good presentation. I would like to come back to that intensive period that we had when we wrote that legislation. So that there has been lots of criticism that this is a very lousy experiment, and why not this and why not that, why not this and that. And we who were involved here, we have Miska Simanainen, Tapio Räsänen, Ville-Veikko Pulkka, who were also included in that a very, very intensive process, and sleepless nights when we tried to get the law done. So that there were lots of compromises that we had to do in order to get everything done so that the experiment could start in the beginning of 2017 as the government wanted to have. So that it was a really intensive, time-consuming process just simply to write very simple legislation, because putting that kind of simple device as basic income in a very complex social security system that we have here, it was a nightmare, really. And so special thanks. It was, you said that it was very interesting to work with us researchers, but it was also very interesting and enlightening to work with your lawyers and to see how things then are done, that we have ideas, then legislation and implementation, so that it was a very interesting process. Yes. And we learned lots of things, I hope.
Yes, I think so too. It was a good example that we have to learn about from thinking about other doings that we are doing here in Kela. Anybody else?
There was one question in Twitter also, so maybe...
Okay.
Yes, I have the question here. So someone on Twitter wanted to know, could you explain the role of the control group in the experiment? Or Olli, one of you.
Maybe Olli would...
Okay, the role of the control group is that when we are trying to mimic experiments in natural sciences and medical sciences, they very often and almost regularly, they have a treatment group who is getting something, some treatment, medicine or whatever, and then control group that is getting nothing, or placebo perhaps. When we have this experiment group that's getting that basic income, and then the control group that is one-to-one, so that they are totally the same kind of persons, and it's randomized, and it means that if we find in the end of the experiment some differences in the behavior and outcomes, then we can draw very strong, we hope, very strong causal conclusions from that, so that that's the role with the control group, so that we can compare and we can say that it was precisely the treatment, the basic income, or whatever we paid out that caused that increase in employment or decrease in employment. We don't know what will happen because we don't actually know how people are behaving. And that's one good thing in this experiment, so that we bring some light on that issue that's very highly debated and we have very strong opinions but very little evidence. So that that's the point with the control group.
Hey, so I would like to ask, what do you think is the most challenging from this experiment, or what are maybe the negative results that you expect from it, and what do you want to do about them?
Well, somebody has asked this other way around. What would be the ideal ending of this experiment? Of course, that all of these people would take on a job, and it was worthwhile to do and test this basic income. But maybe the other way around, that it's more passivating than activating this basic income. That would be, I think, for my point of view, that would be the negative result from this. But I have said also that whether this comes to proves to be more active to these people or more passive to these people or both, I think that anyways we get this information to develop our social security system. So I think it's worthwhile anyways to do this, and I'm happy that we are doing this because, as I said, we have to renew our legislation. Nevertheless, this experiment took place or not, so I think that it's good anyways.
My name is Timo Voipio. I'm from the National Institute for Health and Welfare, THL. We are running a European Union Social Protection Systems program there, and we work with 10 developing countries supporting their efforts to develop their social protection systems. And I'm happy to report that among our partners in the internationally and globally, this Finnish pilot attracts a lot of attention and interest. I just last night had an email from Tanzania from my colleagues. There are 3 questions. 2 are quite probably easy to catch. The other one is more philosophical. But the first question here is, we have some doubts whether the seemingly short duration of the program, 2 years, will reasonably be able to yield significant results in explaining the behavioral consequences of benefit take-up, usage, and impact. And the other one is on how have the Finnish people received this news? Was there some sort of a study employed to examine people's generally people's willingness to accept the new program? For instance, in Switzerland, in some referenda, this kind of an initiative was rejected. And the third one that may take longer to discuss here, they are asking that this writing, I view the new Finnish model as a radical shift that actually contradicts the modern European welfare states' arrangements which strictly advocate for austerity measures lately. So against this backdrop, he is asking if the new basic income security pilot in Finland will imply that austerity measures in Europe are falling apart and that citizens would prefer the old welfare state models, in other words, the more generous systems. Okay, well, I can, from my point of view, this 2-year experiment, that was the one question that, is it too short? Well, actually, I don't remember how we came up with this 2-year. Was it the budget or was it some other reason? I think that 2 years is a long time, but I think that researchers don't think that. Olli, please.
Yeah, the reason for that 2 years was the decision and the will of the government. They said that it will be carried out 2017, 2018, and they gave 20 million to us, and that is one condition that we had to take into consideration. 2 years, it's short or long, depending. It's short to make very big decisions, so that the people certainly not will buy a new house or change totally their life. But what we are calculating, or what we calculated, was that 2 years is enough to get out that kind of employment effect. So that if I have 560 euros a month net for 2 years, in that case I would do anything to get employment and to get that extra. And after that it's another question. But anyway, what we are interested in here, as the government said, us to be interested in is the employment effect, not how people are buying houses or what big changes they are going to do, change of spouse or whatsoever. So that we are not interested in that kind of questions. And then there was a second question. Received the news, so that it depends. We carried out a survey where we asked that whether basic income is good or not idea. 70% of the Finns said that it's a good idea. But of course the support evaporated when we then said that it will cost something. So that in that case something like 35-40% said that it's a good idea. But it's a very complicated issue to ask. But anyway, I think that the Finns are very favorable for this kind of idea. And a couple of 15 years ago, we carried a survey both in Finland and Sweden. And what was funny was that in Sweden, the most pro-basic income party, the Greens, were more negative on basic income than the most negative party, the Conservatives in this country. So that basic income, of some reason, is a good issue here, but not that important issue in Sweden. And actually, there was a question about, Timo, you said about the international interest. And what has been very interesting, I don't know how many inquiries you have gotten from Sweden.
I've lost count already.
Yeah, but from Sweden.
Sweden, no,
yeah.
Nothing. Yeah.
And so that it's not a kind of big issue in Sweden, but everywhere in France, in Germany, in Spain, in Korea, in Canada, in the States, wherever, it's lots of calls and interviews are coming from there, but not that many. I have gotten 2 from Sweden, and perhaps 200 outside the Nordic countries.
Yeah, if I would add to the reaction of the people, I think that first of all, when we did it so rapidly, this whole thing, and it was discussion last year during this implementation that is the tax model in here or not, and so on. So many people inside this experiment and outside are pretty confused now that what does it mean and what's the ending and what's the result and what's this experiment now, who has now began, and there is a little bit this kind of like knowledge need from those people that what's this all about. So we have to clarify it to the Finnish media and to these people when they ask. But I think that's the reaction. And for the experiments, I told you that most of them, what we have received, have been positive. But you said, is this going to lead to a more generous model here, this basic income pilot in Finland? I don't think so. I think that it's well, I don't know. We are talking about all the time at the same time with this basic income, and that if it is passive age, we have to increase the legislation in this way that we make people participate more in that they would get more social security benefits. So I don't think that this is going to widen that idea, but I don't know what's going to be in the end of this. You had the...
Okay, and before we move forward here, there's a question on Twitter. They are asking, is your basic income experimented different from the Revenu de Solidarité active in France implemented in 2009?
Well, I haven't got knowledge about that benefit, so I don't know the answer to that. Do you know only this, France?
Okay, so maybe we can get back to this one a bit later, and we will check if there's something else. Okay, so then they are asking, after the 2 years, how will the people who are accustomed to this benefit going to manage if they didn't find better work?
Well, altogether, the question about the ending of this experiment has to be thought carefully and consider how we can kind of like bring them back to this normal social security system again if nothing happens after this experiment, if government decides not to do anything, and the experiment just ends and these people come back to the normal social security system. If they did not get any job, it happens as in my example, he just loses the 38 euros per month, so gets back to the unemployment benefit system, and that's that. But those who have been receiving both basic income and these earnings from their job, they will lose. Of course, the basic income disappears from their income after this experiment. That will happen. But I have been thinking about this. How do they get used to this idea and get used to it during these 2 years that this will come, this basic income as a train every month, second bank day, and what happens after that? So that we have to think about carefully. We made in the legislation actually during the Parliament's handling time one paragraph more, which enables them to just come back to the unemployment benefit system after the experiments. If there would not be this paragraph, it might be that somebody who has not applied for this unemployment benefit would get nothing after the experiment for a few weeks, because they haven't applied for a job, and if you don't apply for a job, you get these kind of like sanctions during few weeks. You don't get anything. So we, the government secured that after this experiment they get back to the unemployment benefit system right away. But you had here.
Thank you very much. Eppu Mikkonen from Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Social policy advisor. I just really want to say thank you for the presentation. It's there's so much buzz about this at the moment internationally, so I can't hold back asking another international question. The whole agenda for sustainable development, the Agenda 2030, is all about kind of global agenda and linking national innovations, national work to the global good, to the global agenda. And looking at this basic income trial and the maternity box as well, it looks like there's really something there that Finland has in terms of a product and a kind of thought through strategy. And I just wonder, this may be an unfair question because of course what you are looking at is Finland, but after perhaps having had conversations with other international partners, perhaps even in low income settings, could you see ways that this trial and the lessons that is coming from it could translate also to the development agenda? Because if we're looking at things like precarious work, that's happening everywhere. Informal work, grey economy, gig economy, that's everywhere. So could this be part of the international development agenda from your perspective?
Well, maybe yes. As I've been telling when reporters ask that how is it so that Finland is so innovative and other countries are just talking about this basic income? We started this, and so of course we are proud of it. We did it in a great hurry, and I have been answering that our government is in thinks that we have to increase this kind of like experimental things and do it kind of like quicker and see what happens and then decide, not do permanent things. And I think that permanent things like this, doing this fast, would be dramatic in our social security system. So this is very positive that we try this first and then see what happens. And researchers say that this experiment is not that the results is not straightly removable to other countries because the environment is different, the institutional and other things are different. The geographical things are affect to this. And I've said that I don't know if somebody in this experiment in eastern or northern Finland has the chance to get a job. Of course, we don't know that because the economic situation is different in different sides of the country. And so this is one point of view. But I don't see why we could not widen this idea to other places in the world. to get this information, some information that we get from this, because I know that they are fighting for the same problems as we are from the bureaucratic point of view, and also this incentive to take on a job, it's quite gender, I think, in other places, although the working environment is different. So why not?
Okay, there's one more question.
Hi, this is Kyungwa from South Korean newspaper, and thanks for the presentations. And you told us you are expecting unemployed people to get a job from the basic income, but many researchers said that many existing jobs are going to be disappeared in the future because of the situation is changing now. So what kind of results or effects do you expect from the basic income can occur in the future, long future?
Well, one question that I've been answering is that could it be an answer to kind of like on-demand jobs, so you could actually start on basic income studying for you a new job, for example, ICT, coding, or whatever there is available in the future, much more than now. So there is these people who have been starting to think about going to study. I don't know if it's this basic income effect in this experiment or not, but that would be one solution of your secured income during thinking about getting a new job and so on, to answer this problem that Olli told about the automation and the changing working life and more part-time jobs and so on. So, and this whole changing of this world, but I think that this 2,000 people is not big enough to answer that, but maybe it would be this basic income to tackle that problem partly.
Thank you for all the questions, and I really recommend you to follow Marjukka and Olli on Twitter. Some interesting conversation there, and please also follow Kela on Twitter. We have 4 different accounts, and we tweet every week in English as well. And if you want to know more what's going on with the basic income experiment, you can also subscribe to our newsletter in English. Okay, and now we are going to talk about the baby box, the Finnish maternity package. And if you're interested, you can then later see what's inside the package. I have brought it with me, so you can see what's inside. But first, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Olga Tarsalainen, and I'm a communications specialist here in Kela, and I work mainly with international affairs and social media. So let's take a look what's happening with the maternity grant. So the Finnish maternity package was originally designed in 1937 to give all children a more equal start in life. And the actual Maternity Grants Act came into force on 1st of January 1938. So a lot of people ask me and Olli and our other specialists, what prompted the introduction of the maternity grant? It was prompted by concerns over declining birth rates and high infant mortality in Finland. And in 1938, about 2/3 of the country's new mothers received maternity grants. And it amounted to more than 1/3 of the average monthly salary of an industrial worker. So you can imagine that's a big amount of money. And in the early days, the maternity grant was awarded and paid out by municipal welfare boards. And Finland and Kela has been responsible for giving out the package for over 20 years now. And this is what the box looked like in the beginning. The box containing the package could itself be used as a safe bed for the baby. And a lot of people, they ask us why did you do this? And how did this happen? And in those days, the poorest homes didn't necessarily have a clean place for the baby to sleep. So this is one of the reasons. And here you can see another picture of the box. In the beginning, when Finland started giving out the boxes, they were intended for low-income mothers only. And since back then the clothes were still largely homemade, the packages contained fabric suitable for baby clothes. You can see it here in the picture. And they also contained the muslin squares that still feature in the box today. You can take a look later on when you go through the items in the box. So what happened in 1949? That was a big year because in 1949 the grant was made available to all mothers in Finland. And if a mother wanted to receive this maternity grant, she had to visit a physician, a midwife, or a municipal prenatal clinic before the end of the 4th month of pregnancy. And this is a really, really important thing, because this was the thing that encouraged pregnant mothers to have health checks. And this was the thing that helped put Finland among the countries with the world's lowest maternity and infant mortality rates. So this is something that I want you to remember from today's presentation, if something. So, 1950s, what happened back then? The quantity and the quality of the clothes provided in the pack increased gradually. Initially, when Finland started with this program, the clothes were made mostly of white and unbleached cotton. And mothers, what they would do often, they would embroider them for a more personalized appearance. But then in 1957, fabrics and sewing materials were replaced by ready-made garments. And now please take a look at this picture and then later on see how the contents have changed if you go through the box from last year. I have the box from 2016 here with me, so you can see how different it is. In the 80s and in the 90s, what happened? The need for maternity packages, it was questioned in the 80s as families in Finland, they became, I would say, maybe better off. And since the packages, they were really popular as ever among new parents, in Finland it was decided to continue offering them. And then there was a legislative amendment made in the 90s that brought the right to the maternity grant also to adoptive parents. And as I told you earlier, that Kela has been responsible for the distribution of bucks for over 20 years. It was administered by us since 1994. And I wanted you to see how the box has changed during the years. So here you can see what the box looked like in 1994. In the year 2000, as you can see, it's already a bit different. Then what happened when we moved forward to 2003, it's again a bit different. Okay, so one major thing is that the maternity package is not commercially available. The items in the box, they are sourced through a competitive bidding process complying with EU law. And there are a few requirements for the box. First of all, you have to be a permanent resident in Finland, and one other thing is that you have to be covered by the Finnish social security system. A mother who is covered by the social security system and is eligible for the maternity grant, she can choose between the maternity package and a tax-free cash benefit of 140 euros. And while certain items in the box, they are largely the same every year, the colors and the patterns, they change, and we add new items every year. Last year, something that we added was a really cute bunny that instantly became a big hit, and now we are all waiting to see what the new thing is this year. And in the 2016 version of the box, there was around 56 items inside, and you can see all of them there if you want to take a look. And ecological aspects, they are really, really important to us as well, as you can imagine. The baby bottle and soother were left out in order to promote breastfeeding. There are, of course, some criteria as well for the selection of the items, and they include the needs of babies, needs of parents, and also the clothes have to be gender neutral because there's only one box for every baby, so we have to choose colors that go for boys and also for girls. And also quality is really important to us, as well as affordability. And one interesting thing is that nearly all first-time mothers now choose the box. And I even have the exact figure, it's 95% of first-time mothers that actually choose the box. Each year, we award around 60,000 maternity grants, of which around 40,000 are provided in the form of the maternity package. Quite interesting, right? And here you can see the 2016 version of the box. And here you can also see the famous bunny that became an instant hit. So please, if you have any questions, I'm here so you can answer. Please take a look at our website for more information about the baby box and other family benefits. You can also contact me later if you have any questions. I'm also really active on Twitter if you want to follow me. And we also have researchers here to answer your questions concerning basic income. So I have Miska Simanainen here as well. So if you want to make an interview with him about the basic income, you're welcome. But otherwise, I'm really happy that you are all here. Thank you for listening, for coming, and also thank you for following the live stream online. And have a great day, everyone. Thank you. Okay, so feel free if you want to make an interview with the researchers or Mario or